What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here. Welcome back to another How-To Wilds, and today we're taking a look at the boomstick of Monster Hunter. This is the Gunlance. Now, the Gunlance is a really fun fusion, taking the poking and sweeping attacks of the lance and combining it with massive explosions. One of the other things that's so satisfying about this weapon is shelling, which is one of our main damage types here, will deal damage regardless of defense. And so what this means is, if you're against a monster that has a particularly tough hide, one that's hard to get through that weapons might bounce off from unless you're hitting certain spots, Gunlance don't care. Gunlance is going to smack it, and it's going to deal the same damage with shelling regardless of where it hits, which is super, super useful. So it is a fairly complicated weapon. I'm going to do my best to cover all of it. If you would like a more in-depth Gunlance resource, I'd highly recommend my buddy Rurikon. He basically lives, sleeps, eats, and breathes Gunlance. You start playing it, he like pops up in your window and he's like, is that a Gunlance? So excellent resource to learn more about the weapon, but regardless, I will do my best, so let's jump in. Now, the first thing I want to talk about are the various Gunlance types, because right now we are working with a normal type Gunlance. So if we jump on over into Play Guide, we can see we have three types of shelling here. Normal shells have the most capacity, which is what we're working with now. Wide shells have more powerful shelling and wyvern fire attacks, and long shells make for more powerful worm stake cannon attacks. And this is important because each Gunlance is going to play very slightly differently. So right now we're focused mainly on normal Gunlance. And as it mentioned, it's going to have more capacity. So the advantage of that with normal is because when I do that full burst, that burst fire there, it's sending out all 5 of those shells, which is nice. With something like long, it's going to take advantage of the wyvern stake or the worm stake, and we put that on out. And then wide traditionally has been good at charge, which is when you charge up the shells and then let them out. But for now, at least, we're mainly just going to be focused on normal because that's what we have access to. And honestly, I think it's probably the most beginner-friendly kind of Gunlance. Now, talking about the gauge in the top left, we have 3 different parts. The first part is our wyvern fire charges. Now, we have 2 of these at any given time. From block, holding right trigger, we can press Y and B to do a wyvern fire. And typically this is going to take a while to charge on up, but when you let it rip, it's going to shoot out quite far. It's going to deal a lot of damage. Now, there are a couple ways to speed that up. If we do 2 of them back to back, the second one is always going to be a quick one. If we get a perfect block and then we do it, it's going to come out quick. Or if we do it following a lance, it's going to be quick. So for example, if I wanted to shoot the lance, do the worm stake cannon, and then I'll immediately shoot it. And you can see how that came out considerably faster there following the worm stake cannon that we put out. The second icon, that indicates our worm stake cannon. Now we can do that from a couple different moves, but the most common is going to be from a wide sweep. We'll be able to shoot that worm stake cannon out, and that is going to go into the target, drill into them, and explode. Very satisfying. And then the last gauge, that just represents our shelling. So anytime we tap B, if we do a full burst and we blast them all out, those are just going to reload for us as we do quick reloads or manual reloads. Now, talking about quick versus manual, quick reloads will reload all of our shells. It will not, however, reload the stake. So if you have gone and shot your stake out, you need to do a manual reload. And one of the differences here is if you're just hitting R and B in between attacks, you're going to do a quick reload. If you dodge first, you're going to do a manual reload. So always right trigger and B, but the easiest way to remember is if you dodge, you just do a quick dodge, A in any direction. It's going to reset kind of your character state, and then you'll do a manual reload. So dodge first if you want to get a worm stake back. Otherwise, just press the button. Additionally, now, if we just keep hitting B, we're going to do a reload when we come out of shells. So if we run out, it goes straight into a quick reload as well, though that's usually not going to end up happening. All that being covered, let's talk about the base moves. So if we hit Y twice, we'll go lateral thrust into a wide sweep. If you hit forward and Y, you'll do a lunging up thrust, which is very similar to hitting Y and B from neutral, doing a rising slash. Now, regardless of which of those you end up doing, from that, you would hit Y to do, or if we hit Y and B first, we then hit Y for an overhead smash. If you hit forward and Y, you would hit Y and B for the overhead smash. And I know that can get a little confusing because the buttons swap around, but the easiest thing to remember is if you're hitting Y and B first, you just got to follow up with Y. If you're hitting forward and Y, you got to follow up with Y and B. Now, from the overhead smash, we can either hit Y to go straight into the wide sweep, or we can hit B to go into the burst fire. So talking about normal Gunlance, let's talk about our burst fire loop. So forward and Y, Y and B, Y, right trigger B, YB, B, Y, right trigger B. And that is a full burst combo with wide sweep. There's another variation of that that we can now do involving a dodge. So forward Y, YB, B, A, B, YB, B, A, B, YB, B. And so with that variation, I have taken the wide sweep out of the combo, and instead now I'm adding in a little movement focused on dashing forward, which can be nice because we don't have a lot of movement and sometimes you end up knocking a monster away. Now beyond that, we have another new combo known as the full blast. And this one we do after a wide slash. So one of the easiest ways to do a wide slash is going to be shelling first. So you can move while shelling, or you can just hit B while stationary. But after you do that, you're going to pick a direction with your left stick and you're going to hit Y. And then after that, you're going to hit YB. So shell, Y, YB, and then I'm going to press it again. And it's going to reload and do it a second time. Now this is a very, very strong combo. After all, you're doing a full burst into a wyvern stake, into a full burst into a wyvern stake. And typically I would follow that up with a double wyvern fire as well, just maximizing the pain of the combo. And in terms of timing, that full combo will take about 8 seconds to go through, whereas the full burst combo you saw us do is only going to take about 5 seconds. So the basic way I have been playing this weapon, as to not lean too heavily to one or the other and help keep things fresh, is if I am in the middle of a fight and I'm just focused on getting the damage down, I'm going to be pumping out my my full bursts, and then the monster suddenly gets knocked down. Okay, let's go. Monster's knocked down. Now it's time to go into the full blast combo. And so because you can see when we use this, we're not really moving a whole lot from our initial start position, and it's a fantastic combo. We don't have a lot of movement with it. So if you are in a situation where the monster is not really moving and you're like right up in its ass or it's knocked down, going for the full blast combo is going to be better. If the monster is moving in shorter burst and you don't have as long of a damage window, you're going to want to go for the full burst instead of the blast. Burst is the rip one, blast is the double one. Now besides that, some other things to touch on that I think are kind of important. We can now move while shelling, which is really nice. So you can see I'm just kind of dashing all over. Going sideways and backwards are going to be where you're going to see your most movement. Going forward, I mean, kind of, but not a whole lot. So in general, if you want to move forward with the lance, one of the best ways is forward and Y, B, Y. And so what we're doing here is we are going into a lunging up thrust. We're canceling it with the shell, and then we're doing the moving wide sweep. And that's going to get us a nice little bit of short distance. If you need to do distance beyond that, honestly, just put the Gunlance away and run. Because this is not a weapon that's known for mobility, at least not until it has evade extender. And even then, in older games, you would get evade extender and then you'd hop backwards, which our back hops, well, let me see if we put on focus mode. I think it's a little better, but still doesn't seem as hoppy as it used to be. Besides that, I think we've pretty much covered everything. Our frost strike, this is going to load a, our focus strike will load a wyvern stake and then drill into the enemy. It's a little bit iffy to hit because we have a very limited range that can attack, you know, right in front of us. So keep that in mind. It can be a strong ability. It's just kind of hard to get it off from time to time. Besides that, perfect block. Out of a perfect block, we can do a fast wyvern fire. Out of a perfect block, we can also do the slam. So this portion, you can go straight into that after a perfect block. So perfect block, overhead slam, full burst, quick reload, perfect block, overhead slam, etc. You get the idea. And besides that, that's about it. Gunlance it's a really fun weapon to play. Like I said, being able to just slam the enemy and put out the shelling is very, very fun. I showed it, but I didn't talk about it actually real fast. So holding B is charge shelling, and that's changed in Wilds now. When we hold down B, it's going to charge up any shells and then let them loose. With normal Gunlance, you're not typically going to charge shell, because anytime you could charge shell, you're better off doing a full burst than getting the damage from smacking the Gunlance across something's face and then letting your burst out. But if we had to break it down into 3 items, full burst combo is going to be your main go-to. Full blast combo when you have big openings. utilize the perfect guard to slam into full blast. Besides that, we do have a couple different guard points now with the Gunlance. I mean, you'll tell because your shield will light up. The full blast combo, for example, has 2 separate guard points during it, which are pretty nice. So, I mean, all in all, it's definitely very improved over what it was in the prior games. They just added a bunch of new tools to the kit of Gunlance, and it's in a really good spot. Oh, one thing I didn't talk, so if you ever want a mount with the Gunlance, if we do our dismount attack, we're going to do an aerial burst, which will not do mounting damage, but is very flashy. Instead, if you jump and then hit right trigger, that is a very decent attack at getting a mount off. I might be able to get one here right at the start if I do it twice. Nope, looks like I'm going to need 3. We can also jump and hit Y, but I don't like that one nearly as much, because this one, if we don't get the mount, I could go into a full burst after I hit the ground. A little bit longer, but I'm still going to go for the weapon attacks with this. Since it's down, I'm going for the big combo. With that, very disappointing. Go into the quick wyvern fire from this. Go into a second wyvern fire. Let's see how we're utilizing those perfect guards. I'm gonna go into the wide sweep, and I'll actually go into the blast combo instead, since he's down right now. Get a power clash here. I'm gonna go ahead and show this off if I can. Oh, this is why it's a little iffy. You gotta... Definitely a harder one to hit. Oh, he's running away from me. Get back here. I'm just gonna get ahead of him. I know where you're coming. Into the wyvern fire! Oh, and it finished him. What a beautiful finish there. And it's definitely a weapon that, like, watching people play it seems very complicated, but you end up picking it up pretty fast. So, like, as a reminder, the big things, you full slam, you burst, you can reload. Instead, if I want to go for the bigger combo, shell, hit Y, and then it's just Y and B, and you do that twice. And that's going into the blast combo. And then obviously from that, pepper in the quick wyvern fire just for some extra damage. And then you're just getting back to it. And that's normal Gunlance in a nutshell there. You know, we're slamming, we're causing massive explosions, we're pumping out a ton of damage. And like I said, the big benefit here is it doesn't matter what the defense of the monster is. It could be a literal boulder. Shelling is going to do the same damage that shelling is going to do. So either way, that wraps things up for all of the melee weapons, and we have 2 remaining, the light bowgun and the heavy bowgun. So stay tuned, and I will cover those in some upcoming videos in just a little bit.